Were there any wrestlers from ECW that you thought might have been a good fit for Smoky Mountain Wrestling?
Well, now if I say no, then that just shits on me and everybody that ever worked for ECW, which included some of my guys that were in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, just the other way around, Candido, Tammy. But I didn't attempt to recruit anybody from ECW during the period that we were in business and ECW was in business concurrently, because most of those guys were from the Northeast and were home, and they would have had to move to come work for me. Or I knew and had heard that somehow Paul E. was paying these guys more per night than I was paying them. And of course, they didn't run nearly as many shows. We were running, 15 shows a month, and I don't think ECW ever did that. And so my guys got paid less per night, but got more nights. And I mean, help me. Who was some of the main guys at that point? Well,
I'll ask you four. And you tell me if you think these four would have fit in with the gimmicks they had in ECW, let's say.
Okay.
Sabu, the Sandman, Raven, and the franchise Shane Douglas.
Well, yeah, Shane would have worked. The other three, and that's not knocking. Nobody would have got Sabu. Nobody would have got it because of the whole. If you're going to jump off the top rope on a table, there better be a guy laying on top of it. The first time he broke a table when there's nobody on top of it, the people would have hooted him out of the building. It just didn't make sense in our environment. Sandman, same thing. No, he couldn't say the things that he said, whether at the live events on the microphone or on TV. The people wouldn't have, the entrance wouldn't have been a thing. He would have had to have been a heel. But I mean, I guess in some ways the Dirty White Boy was a Southern version of the Sandman, when he was a heel and when he was a babyface. But I just, we had the Dirty White Boy. And Raven, I'd mentioned before that, Scotty and I had talked before he became Raven. I thought he was but with the Raven, the whole Raven thing, I didn't understand the whole Raven thing. I don't think anybody watching Smoky Mountain Wrestling probably in that part of the country at that time would have either. But Shane could work normally. And, and didn't have, as long as we said, Shane, don't cuss, he could have done a lot of the stuff he did in ECW and just been a prickish heel. But why once again, he lives in Pittsburgh and he can go be the top guy in Philadelphia. Why is he going to move to Knoxville to be the top guy in Knoxville?
Well, also, one thing I think a lot of people forget, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say from, I don't know, late 89 up until ECW really started taking off with 94, at least, maybe even past that. Wasn't Shane considered one of the biggest malcontents in the business? Everything was, I'm going to quit and go to medical school. I'm going to be a doctor. I don't need this.
Yeah, that's true also. And Shane had even complained to Herd when we had the deal between me and him where I signed the contract accidentally for a match between me and Shane Douglas. Well, I thought it was a tag team match with the Midnight, right? And it was for the TBS Saturday night show, and we were trying to do something for the ratings. And so he sees me in the airport the day after we shoot that thing. He says, I'm not going to sell the powder. I laugh, and he said, no, I'm serious. I think he was serious. He knew enough from being around Memphis that somehow in the match, he's going to jerk me in when I try to get out of it, and then I'm going to powder him and blind him so I can get a little heat on him so he can make a comeback and beat me, right? I said, Shane, it's going to be easy and don't worry about it, right? So we did the thing. I came out with the sling and the doctor's note, but they jerked me in. They finned the Midnight off. I blind him with powder, take fucking gimmick out, get 30 seconds or a minute of heat on him. He makes a comeback and he's throttling me and pins me, and then the Midnight saved me. And we did that in Greensboro, and the Saturday night program, and I wish I had the Midnight book in front of me, but those who can follow along. But that Saturday night program with that match advertised on it did one of the highest ratings in the previous 6 months for a Saturday night program or whatever, because it was different and everyone wanted to see it, and we told a story. But he calls Herd. He said, it made me look bad. It made me look weak. And Shane, I love you, but you did whine like a little girl. It made me look bad. It made me look weak selling for a manager. And the reason why that we were doing a program between the Midnight Express and the Dynamic Dudes was because the only team that Herd had less use for than me and the Midnight Express was the Dynamic Dudes. So basically what happened was when he called and complained to Herd didn't like me either. So, okay, you're right. And we had to reshoot it in like Peoria and put it in the program. So what the people actually saw was Stan Lane substituting when my doctor's note did work or some shit. And that's what they aired by the time the thing was ready to air. So it got the number because people thought they were going to see one thing, but they didn't see it. And then since Flair and Kevin and nobody else on the booking committee or in the office cared whether the Dynamic Dudes, to be honest, turned blue or caught fire and burst into flame, and they'd pissed me off, I just stopped fucking pushing for the dudes to do shit. So for the next like fucking month or 6 weeks at the houses, all the matches were, if the dudes beat the Midnight Express, they get 5 minutes with me. And for the first time in history, especially that many times, the baby faces didn't win and didn't get 5 minutes with the manager. And I'm like, well, what the fuck? I was trying to help you fucking guys. So, and then they were, pretty much done shortly after that, I believe.